All right. Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, their inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This Chicago based artist has been involved in music for almost his entire life. He's also the creator of Soulfest, which is just one of the many feats he's accomplished in his 6 years as an artist. With a unique blend of R&B, hip hop, gospel, and pop, he's a name you'll want to remember. Welcome to Juan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, why don't you just start off by telling me a little bit about how and like where your music journey kind of all began? Like, where did you put your foot in the door of the music world?
Music just kind of came a little bit naturally to me because it was something that was always around. Like from kindergarten up to like fourth grade, I went to a Christian school and we had to sing every day. So it was always just something around. So then by the time I transferred schools at fourth grade, I realized like singing isn't something that everybody can do. Like I didn't really think it was special at first, but like the kids would go like, "Oh my God, you can sing." And I'm just like, "Can't everybody do it?" It wasn't like a big deal to me. So it was always kind of subconsciously in me. And then fast forward, like I got in trouble in like sixth grade with like a group of my friends for like banging on the tables and rapping and singing. And my dean at the time was just like, "Y'all like to sing so much, join in the choir." And we was all like, "That's lame. Come on, man." But she was like, "Do this so y'all all getting detention." And my mom was a teacher, so I couldn't get detention. So I was like, "All right, I guess quiet it is." I just kind of stuck with it.
I've never
So
heard anybody be forced into choir like that.
right,
And then
right,
actually enjoy it. You know, it's usually
exactly.
like, oh, I have to sign up, but screw this, I don't want to do it. But it clearly did you some favors.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. Um, so then at what point did just kind of performing music and being in choir and doing whatever else kind of transform into this? I want to make my own music. I want to have this artistry and pursue it in that way. When did that transition happen?
It really happened for me when I was in high school. I started performing more because I got in like four choirs in high school. And then I started wanting to make my own music in 2010. So I was like 14 at the time. And essentially, I just kind of had this thought like around New Year's that when I was 14. So I was just kind of like, oh man, like if I want to do this, I kind of got to get up and do it, make an effort to do it. So then I started just Googling studios, trying to figure out. Luckily, like my stepdad knew somebody with a studio, and I was just kind of like, okay, I'll go there. And then I just started recording demos. And I didn't really have like that many CDs. So, like, in order to show my friends in high school, it would turn into this thing where I had this CD with a couple of my songs on it. And somebody would take it home, and then I'm like, "Yo, bring it back because I got to give it to this person next." And that's how it kind of made its way around like my first demo recordings.
Wow, you just had a CD that you passed around amongst different people. That's really
Exactly.
interesting.
So then it turned into like a word of mouth thing because, I'm not that old. So everybody had like cell phones and Facebook and stuff. And they was like, "Yo, have you heard this kid, D3WON? Like, this is his CD, like his actual CD." And then like people started requesting songs from me. And then I just ended up doing them because I was just like, yeah, this is like a cool exercise. Let's try it.
That's wow, that's really cool that you just that's I mean, word of mouth is word of mouth, but like passing a CD around and Facebook and all that, that's and you were what in high school?
Yeah, yeah. My freshman year of high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Is there something that you find that like is a common theme within your music? Like, is there something that you find inspires a lot of the stuff that you write and the stuff that you make?
For me, it's just honesty because I would love to like sit there and try to write a story that isn't my own, which I've tried many a time, failed miserably. But I also just have a really good factor of music of who goes what on what track, what sounds right, and also what touches me personally. And I tend not to go for songs that to me come off disingenuous.
Is there Like, so then do you write a lot about like personal experiences and stuff like that? Or is it more like, is it more of like a story kind of approach where it's like, oh, this is something that I went through, or it's like, oh, this is like the emotion side of it? Like, is it a combination?
Yeah, it can be a combination because I used to think really thoroughly about my lyrics and try to plan out every single syllable. But around the time when I started working on Symphony and kind of got past the first song, I was just like, I'm just gonna write about whatever feels right to me. And I intuitively know like if it feels right, whether if I need to go back and write some stuff. But normally how it just goes is I just kind of freestyle it out, write it on the phone, listen to it, write down the best parts, and then keep going. Or sometimes it'll just all come to me at once, and it's just a matter of catching up to that rhythm and trying to write it all down.
See
So
if your hand can keep up with your head.
exactly, and then it works like that. Not just writing for myself, but if I write for others as well, it's same thing. It just can take a spark of inspiration, and sometimes it isn't really me. Sometimes it's just who I'm in the room with at the time.
Do you find any significant difference between the stuff that you write for yourself versus for other people?
Not really. The only difference I could say, like if I'm writing for somebody else, I would ask for their stories and be like, hey, well, tell me about what it is you want to write about. Tell me about this specific story. And I think Rick Rubin said it best. Being a producer is essentially just being a therapist, just coming in with a non-biased opinion and really hearing the stories out, not repeating them to anybody, and just going like, okay, I hear what you're trying to say. And then try to figure out a song around that. So sometimes I'll put my own experiences into those songs that they some way correlate, but a lot of the times it's just me hearing them out, kind of taking what it is that I took from the story and just kind of writing lyrics out to a beat and just kind of saying, okay, this is what I think about what you just said. What do you think about it? And then we just kind of go back and forth from there.
Do you ever write with other people for your own stuff?
For I tried that actually because I had a mentor figure, Ryan Fest, who used to work with Kanye West, and he taught me how to write in a group. And it would be great to be able to do that on my own rap verses, but sometimes I just don't feel like people are getting across what I need to get across. And then the spur of the moment, God moment would just happen where it's just kind of like all the words are there. So now it's like I really don't need anybody, at least to write my parts on the songs that if you hear me rapping them on this project, I wrote all my own parts. But I know for the song overall, like if there's other people on the songs, yeah, there'll be other writers coming in, maybe writing a hook, maybe writing a bridge, giving me a melody, and I just kind of compile all those parts and then try to turn it into a song.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
I also come from the space of I don't really write with anybody else on my own stuff. I've not really had the opportunity to write with anybody else on their stuff, but
Hmm.
I'm very particular about the way that I do things, and I know that wouldn't vibe with a lot of people. So
Yeah,
it's, I mean, to each their own. If you are able to do it yourself, do it yourself. You know.
absolutely.
Um, how would you describe your music for somebody who's never heard it?
My music is really just an I wish I could think of the word. It's probably just a collection of styles. I think that's what it would say because I am hip hop, but at the same time, there's no reason why rock and new wave and classical and R&B and gospel can't come into hip hop because I feel like that's how the genre expands by adding all these new things. And that's how it started. A lot of the older records that I found came from me being such a nerd about rap records and listening to the samples and being like, oh, where does this come from? And then, as you know, like a kid, that I come up listening to Jay-Z and Nas and Big and Dr. Dre. When I'm hearing their records and I'm listening to the samples, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the Jackson 5, this is the Beatles, this is Roy Orbison, and then starting to get into their catalog. So it made my ear a lot more eclectic.
So just kind of a little bit of everything you got
E-
going on.
Exactly.
That's um kind of going off of that. Is there any particular release as like a whole project or song that you've put together that you think best embodies who you are as an artist?
At this moment in time, probably Symphony, because it took me the longest to make. And it's just a culmination of everything that I wanted the people to hear from me first. And I think that's the best thing.
Is there any particular track or couple tracks that you think are like, this is like, if you had one song to show somebody just to sell them on kind of what you're all about, do you know what that song would be?
Probably 22, because that's the most different song on the album that takes, or on the project, it takes so many styles from different places, because you got my R&B influence with the Tracy Spencer sample on there. You got the different vibes and different languages of music that I listen to with Bea singing her hook in Spanish. And then you got Bohouse with his like EDM eclectic style, kind of switching that soul sample, turning it into something else. And then you have Jackson doing the guitar solo on that very new wave. So I think that would be the best representation.
Um, what is it that, because in the world of music now, in the world of being independent artists and everything, there's tons and tons of people that are doing the same thing. And it's hard to find a place for your voice to kind of stand out amongst a very noisy crowd, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is it ultimately that motivates you to keep doing being an artist?
Honestly, I just love it. I love everything about it. I love writing. I love producing. I love listening to records. I love watching documentaries on music. And to me, it comes so naturally to me that it becomes this thing where I'm just kind of like, I need to do it because it's coming so naturally to me. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do.
So it's just, you kind of think that this is the role that you were meant to play in the world. This is the path that you were meant to take.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the best answer you can really give. You know, it's like, it's the same reason some people become teachers, some people become doctors, some people
Hmm.
make music for a living. You know, it's, everybody's got their place, and this just happens to be one of the more challenging ones.
Yeah.
um, so then with that being said, like, I know I mentioned you're um the creator of Soulfest.
Hmm.
Um, what is Soulfest for those that
So
don't know?
yeah, Soulfest was an original music showcase that I started when I was a freshman at Columbia College Chicago. And that kind of really stemmed from the idea of, why isn't there any showcases that really reflect what the Chicago music scene is in terms of its diversity? Because normally you get shows that are just hip hop or are just rock or et cetera, et cetera. I know I don't listen to music like that. I know a lot of people don't listen to music like that. And I know so many artists because, we all run in the same circles. We all go to the same classes. How about we all just perform together? And then it sort of became this thing where I started doing it when I was in college, and a couple years when I was out of college. And then the pandemic happened, and I was just kind of like, okay, this was cool for its time. I'm not saying I won't do it again, but I think at the time it really put people onto new music, as well as just kind of give people an idea of who I am as an artist and as a producer. And it was just another creative outlet for me to do something that I was like, I don't really see this much. Let's try doing this.
I mean, do you have any intentions of bringing it back at any point?
Yeah, at some point.
You think it's in the future?
Yeah, probably. But I would love to do it like on a bigger scale, because the last time we did it, we was like at Emporium, which was like, it was a really cool like venue to do it, because you like surrounded by video games and stuff, got this big stage with a screen on it. It was really cool. So I'm like, okay, if I done went from the college to Emporium, the next step we got to do something bigger. So that's really where I am with it.
Um, Kind of going off of that because it's a whole showcase and performance. If there was an artist, if you could open for any artist, who would it be?
Hmm, that's interesting. It's kind of hard for me to perform because there's so many people on my records. If you just like have me perform, you probably get like a 10-minute set. So it would become this thing where I would need to like bring out a ton of people. But whoever it would be, I don't know. That's really hard because it depends on the audience. My guess is I would probably lean towards somebody I would want to work with in the future on my record. So that probably would be JoJo. And I feel like her crowd would be more accepting of my type of music. And I could see me and her making a record together. So if I had to open up for anybody, it would probably be her.
It's not a response I was necessarily expecting, but I like it.
Right.
Yeah. She's doing some cool stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a show I'd come to see.
Absolutely.
Um, how do you find a balance between being an artist and like just living like daily life? Because obviously like being an artist isn't like your typical like job where it's like, oh, you show up at this time, you leave at this time, and then the rest is basically your hours of the day. It's kind of you make your own schedule, and that has its pros and cons. So how do you kind of find that balance in between?
Yeah, I think what it is when I'm not working like in the studio, I do so many other things that it allows me to keep my brain busy for the rest of the day. So like if I'm not writing a song, I could be working on a video concept. If I'm not doing that, I could be working on photos. If I'm not doing that, I research, I read books, I watch documentaries, I do a lot to try and figure out how did this get made and what was done. And so by the next time I go to the studio, I'm more equipped and I'm more ready than I was before. So I just kind of keep my brain moving. And maybe that's like that Virgo thing where it's like you're really obsessive about this one thing, but that's really what it is. Like 24 hours a day for me, it's like, all right, I could be doing something that like benefits the mind that will help me get to this goal a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're using all your time wisely. So, um, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
Hmm. Probably just my ear. I think I have a very keen sense of who I am, and that came over time. And I think a lot of artists are searching, and I get that too, because at one point I was searching, and you feel insecure about certain things. Like it took me like 4 years to come up with like 8 really great tracks. Some people they record 10 songs a year, and of course, those being my peers, it's like y'all releasing so much. But then I kind of learned to respect and love my process because at the same time, the best music isn't made, it can be made super fast. The Beatles made music super fast and it worked for them. But some artists ain't, well, a lot of artists ain't the Beatles. So it's kind of like, all right, make music at your own pace. And I think if you put as much love and dedication into it, people will recognize that and go like, okay, haven't heard from you in a while, but I know whenever you do come out with something that's going to be really good because it's been quality controlled crazily. So I know it's going to be good. So I'm hoping that that separates me. The quality of my work and the idea of every time D3WON comes out, he's going to come out with something different. So that's what I'm hoping kind of spaces me out.
Is like people never know what you're gonna do next.
Exactly. Because if you listen to Symphony and my single voicemails, totally different. And then there's like little nerdy production stuff I could talk about that makes it sonically different, but I don't want to bore your audience. So, but yeah, that's what I'm hoping people get from me.
um, I mean, if every you're hoping that every kind of project is different, is there a direction that you're headed with any future projects?
Yeah, I have some ideas in mind, but I want to keep those close to the
Okay.
chest. So, yeah. So that way when people get it, they won't already see it coming.
Yeah, got to keep your cards close.
Exactly.
Um, so with your music and with just who you are as an artist, what is the kind of impact that you want to have with your career?
Hmm. I never actually thought about that. Well, I guess the impact I want to have is just showing people how we relate to each other. I believe music connects everybody because there are songs in different languages. I don't know what they're saying, but I pick up the vibe of it instantaneously. I hate to keep going back to the Beatles, but the Beatles loved American music. They love Little Richard. That's why a lot of their funkier records sound like his. Because music, no matter where you make it from, will connect with anybody if it's good enough. So that's what I'm hoping it does. I hope my music brings people together. And I just hope people really dig it and understand what I'm trying to do musically with bringing the world together in my own certain way and also showing our similarities as well. That's what I'm hoping.
Power of human connection.
Word.
It's a big thing. It's something that I've recognized a lot more recently and kind of geared some of my own stuff towards. So I'm with you on that one. Um, so my final question is always, why music? Like, as creative people, obviously there's different outlets as far as like visual, like there's film, there's like painting, art, like there's all writing, there's all different kinds of creative outlets. So
Yeah.
why is music what you pursued?
Music is just something to me that I felt like God just kind of put in my life subconsciously. And it was just a matter of time till I kind of picked it up. And then he really made it easy for me to kind of be like, hey, I'm going to open up these resources. These resources for you. So that way you're able to create the music that I want you to do, not the one that you want to do. Because I tried to be Stevie Wonder, Dr. Dre, and Jay-Z and failed tremendously. But it made me make the music that ended up becoming as authentically me as possible. And I didn't realize that until it was done. But that's why music is for me. I feel like it's just something I'm meant to do and hopefully serve the purpose that he wants me to do.
I think that's a great answer. And I mean, authenticity is huge. Like, if you are trying to be the Stevie Wonder and the Jay-Z, you're not going to get anywhere because they already exist. Like,
Exactly.
nobody needs a second Jay-Z or a second Stevie Wonder. As talented as they are,
Yeah,
they're one of a kind for a
exactly.
reason. So we need a D3WON. We don't need another Jay-Z.
I appreciate
So
that.
all right. Well, that kind of wraps up this episode of the Why Music podcast. Join us back again next week for another interview with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
All righty.